Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is actor Geoffrey Holland, one of Britain's best-loved sitcom actors, fondly remembered for playing Spike Dixon in Hi-de-Hi. His memoir is now out, called The First Rule of Comedy, written in collaboration with Britain's comedy historian Robert Ross. Welcome to the show, Geoffrey.
Thank you, Hannah. Nice to be with you.
Oh, it's lovely to have you with us. And this must have been such fun putting this book together and reminiscing over your life and career.
It was incredible. I didn't know where to start, really, but I started at the beginning with Hi-de-Hi. And, that's what I'm best known for and always will be.
Yeah.
But it was such fun to do and I had a great time writing it down. Everything sort of led on to the next one. I thought, I remember what I did next. And, all these chapters. It's all about the wonderful people I've worked with, and who influenced me and what fun I had.
Yeah. And I was reading, you say it started with Hi-de-Hi. Your first speaking role was an episode of Dixon of Dock Green in 1974.
It was indeed, yes, with the immortal Jack Warner. Yes, it was incredible, that. It was fantastic. My first speaking part on television. I've been in the theatre, I've been an actor for about 13 or 14 years before that came up. And then, the Dad's Army stage show came up a year later, which is where I first met Perry and Croft, the writers. And it all snowballed from there, really.
Yeah. And how did it feel going from stage to television? Because they're very different mediums.
Oh, totally different. I remember being scared stiff of the cameras because in those days, the TV cameras were huge things. They're massive, but they're not so big now, but they were then. And I kept looking at this damn thing, looking at me, and I thought, oh dear, it's a Dalek. It's going to exterminate me any minute. But, I still got used to it.
Yeah. And when you auditioned, I assume you auditioned for Hi-de-Hi, what were your thoughts right at the beginning about the show before it all started?
Well, I'd done lots of stuff for Jimmy Perry and David Croft before Hi-de-Hi came up, so they knew me quite well by then. I'd been working on and off for them for about 5 years. And when they wrote Hi-de-Hi, they wrote Spike with me in mind, which was lovely for me because I'd done a couple of 8-off Hot Mums for them and done a couple of Are You Being Served for David and Jeremy Lloyd. And I was even in one of the final episodes of the last series of Dad's Army, which was wonderful. So, I go back a long way. And then Hi-de-Hi came along and we were hoping for as big a success as they'd had with all their other stuff. And of course, we were dead right. We just fingers crossed, it had all the earmarkings of the same kind of pedigree, if you like, the same kind of characters, all mismatched in an environment where they were forced together. And that's where the comedy came from in all their shows, of course.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before, I think the third week of the series going out, someone shouted Hi-de-Hi in the street. And I thought it was me they were shouting at, and I was terrified because I'd never had that before. But I looked round, and it wasn't me at all. It was a young lad who was shouting Hi-de-Hi to his mate across the street. That's how quickly it had taken off and got into the nation's vocabulary.
Amazing. I bet people still say it to you now, do they?
We do, actually, yes. It does happen occasionally in the strangest of places. I remember on my travels a few years ago, I was in Vietnam, would you believe? And I went to a hotel hairdressing salon for a haircut. And I'm sitting there waiting for the haircut. And suddenly I hear this voice say, Hi-de-Hi, mate, how you going? All right? And it was this Australian barber who was backpacking his way around the world, getting jobs in various places. He actually cut my hair in the end, but he knew from in the middle of Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City. It was incredible.
Oh, wonderful. And you obviously don't mind. It's obviously nice when people recognise you and say the quotes and things, because it's all very friendly, I assume.
Of course, it's lovely, and I'm thrilled with it because, people remember the show with such affection and warmth. And when they're talking to me, there's always a smile on their face. It's lovely. And they talk about the characters, the fact that there aren't very many of us left now, is a bit sad. But, they just remember it with such affection. And that's what makes me so proud of it,
Yeah. And you were friends, of course. You all got on well, both on the show, doing it together. It looked like you got on really well and friends off the set as well, which is lovely.
Indeed we do. Yes, we did. In fact, those of us that are still around, we still do. In fact, most of them are coming to my book launch at the weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Oh, great. And I mean, you worked together for a long time. It was about 20 years, wasn't it, with Paul Shane and Sue Pollard?
Paul Shane and Sue and I were together for almost 20 years. We did 3 series, Heidi High. I mean, the wonderful You Rang Me Lord, of course. And then we did Oh, Dr. Beeching, which sadly was rather short-lived. But that just came to an end when the BBC was changing and the nature of comedy was changing in the mid-90s. So they got rid of that, and things went in a different direction, which is a shame, really. But nothing lasts forever.
No.
So we had a good run. We had a really good run.
Yeah, and it is a shame, and lots of people who remember these great shows from the 70s and 80s will say that comedy and a lot of these comedy shows don't exist anymore, and the kind of shows they're putting out there just aren't the same.
Well, they're not the same for various reasons. It sounds like sour grapes, but I don't mean it to be. It's just that we live in a different world now. The world has changed. Families don't sit down with Granny and the kids to watch the TV anymore together like they used to. The kids are upstairs on their tablets and whatevers and computers and things and staring at screens. And, it's a very different world. And why not? I mean, people are still loving the show, which is what's wonderful to me. We have various get-togethers and reunions occasionally, and crowds turn up, and I get letters from kids who weren't even born when we were making the show, and they love it at face value, and it just says a lot for what the nature of the comedy of the piece, really.
Definitely.
The characters and the nature of the fact that it's still funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of wokeism around now regarding comedy, and people getting offended, and you have to be so careful what you say, and things that were just meant as a light-hearted joke now are sometimes seen as deeply inappropriate, and it must be so difficult for comedy writers and stand-up comedians to know what they can get away with.
Almost impossible, I would think. It's easier for a stand-up in a live hall with a live audience. You can bluff over it and get on. But if it's on television, it gets through to the nation. It's unforgivable. It's very, very difficult now. I hope it doesn't last long.
No, I agree.
Not the same.
No, you mentioned You Rang Me Lord, and I wanted to remind you and ask you to tell the listeners of a story when you were in Hungary, in Budapest, because they were huge fans over there, and you got the most incredible reception.
Indeed, it was extraordinary. We found out that You Rang Me Lord is massive in Hungary. They love the show. In fact, they watch it every day on TV over there. They watch it in English and they watch it in Hungarian with our voices dubbed by Hungarian actors. We had a big event in 2018 over there to celebrate 30 years since we made the pilot in 1988, and 5 of us went over. They treated us like royalty. It was absolutely wonderful. And we had this enormous room full of about 900 people in this room. It was amazing. And all the Hungarian actors who dubbed our voices were on the stage together first, and they did the first part of the show, telling their own stories to their own audience in their own language. And then the lady who was running the show, she tinkled a little bell and said, do you think we could have a drink, please? And then I walk on to the stage, dressed as James Twelvetrees in my stripy waistcoat and coat, black trousers, carrying a tray of glasses of champagne. And as soon as the crowd saw me, they went mental. I've never heard a sound like it in my life. It was extraordinary. They took the roof off. I could have been Elvis Presley or one of the Beatles for all it was worth. It was extraordinary. It really was. And the love in that room for our show was just immense. I managed to serve the drink drinks, and I eventually managed to leave the stage. And then they never stopped screaming. And as soon as I got into the wings, I just burst into tears. It was just so overwhelming. You know, the love for our show was just so overwhelming. It was just incredible. I've never known anything like it, and I'll never forget it as long as I live.
Oh, how wonderful. What an experience. And I wanted to ask you about, because this must have been a daunting experience, when you took part in Goon Again, the 50th anniversary celebration of the Goon Show, because you stepped into Peter Sellers' shoes.
I did. I don't know what I was thinking, really, but I did. I worked with some old mates. We have a wonderful producer called Dirk Maggs who worked for the BBC and wanted to do this tribute show to celebrate 50 years since the original Goon Show started in 1951. This was 2001. And I've always done the voices of the goons just for fun, just for myself, you know. And this producer, Dirk, he's as big a fan as me of the Goon Show. And of course, whenever we get together, we talk in all the voices and all the characters together. And he decided he wanted me to play all the Peter Sellers characters, you know, Henry Crun and Major Bloodknock and Blue Bottle and all the other characters that Sellers did on the show. And I had the time of my life doing that. It was one of the happiest nights I've ever spent in the theatre in my entire life. There was a live 17-piece orchestra on the stage, conducted by the great John Wilson, who now conducts at the Proms every year.
Oh, you know, and
wow. With his own orchestra doing all the original music, and we had the most fabulous evening. It was wonderful, with Harry Seacombe's son Andy Seacombe playing his own father's part, and John Glover, my mate John Glover, played all the Milligan voices. I did all the Sellers voices, and we had Lance Ellington there, of course, great Lance, who used to sing on Strictly. He's singing for his father Ray Ellington, who used to sing, the band leader, and Christopher Timothy was the announcer. His father Andrew Timothy used to be the original announcer back in the 50s.
Oh, wow, how wonderful.
Son of the Goon Show, really.
Yeah.
But it was just wonderful to be able to recreate it, and it went out so well. It's called Goon Again, and it's still available on CD if anyone wants to look it up. It's still there.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. So you had to do the What Time Is It Eccles sketch, which is one of my favourites.
Yeah, it was lovely. Lovely stuff.
Fabulous.
Lovely.
And I know you're a massive fan and admirer of the work of Stan Laurel, and yes, you did a wonderful one-man play, and This Is My Friend Mr. Laurel, based on his life. Tell us about that.
Yes, I've been doing that for about 10 years now, and it was an idea I had way back in the 1970s, because Laurel and Hardy was being shown again on TV at the time in the early evenings by the BBC, and my love for them got rekindled, because I was always a big fan from the age of about 7 or 8, you know, the Saturday morning picture shows I used to go to. And I just thought, at the time, what a wonderful idea it would be to do a one-man show about Stan Laurel, because it's a fascinating story, his life story, to tell. I mean, all you see is that dumb little twit on the screen, you know, being idiotic, but he was the brains behind the entire act. You know, he worked with the writers on all the storylines and the plots. He directed all the films himself, because the accredited directors just let him get on with it because it made their lives easier, and they knew he knew what he was doing. And then at the end of the day, Oliver Hardy went off to play golf, and Stan went into the cutting room with the editor and did all the editing, because he wanted it his way, and he's got it, you know, and it was wonderful. And that was the idea. But I, of course, in the 70s, when I thought of it, I realised I was only in my 20s myself, so I thought, well, I can't do it yet. I've got to wait until I'm old enough to have a bit of credibility, because you can't tell a life story until you've had a life. And I did. I waited and I waited and I waited. I waited over 40 years.
Wow.
Before I got that show on its feet, and it's been a huge success for me. Really has. I took it to the Edinburgh Fringe for 4 different consecutive years, and sold out up there with it, and it was wonderful. And I've been around the country with it, and I've been abroad with it too. I've been to could you believe I've been to Dubai with it, and I've done it on cruise ships and all sorts. But it's been a wonderful journey for me.
Yeah.
Stan Laurel's life. It's
That's
been
fabulous. And also, I'm hoping very much that you can tell us whether you're going to be back on television with Barmy Dale.
Well, we're hoping so. It's a work in progress. Barbie-Dale was a radio comedy at the moment, and it's top of the charts in the old podcast charts. But we're still working on it, and hopefully, if somebody takes it on, we can bring it to TV. It'd be wonderful. It'd be very funny. It's a very funny sitcom in the old-fashioned way, and I'm sure if somebody sees the opportunity, they'll grab it with both hands, and maybe we'll see us both on TV again.
Yeah, because you star alongside your wife, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. We play the vicar and the vicar's wife in it. So that's fun. That's fun. Great fun.
Oh, wonderful. Well, if people want to get a copy of The First Rule of Comedy, it's available on our website, TRE.radio. Lovely quote from Sue Pollard. She says, when you have Jeff around, you know you're in safe hands, just as you will be when you read his book.
That's lovely. It's not nice of her to say that. It was really sweet of her. Thank you. The first rule, of course, people have asked me what it is, and I say, well, there are many of them. There are many. In fact, there are so many of them. Most of them are chapter headings in the book.
Oh, so, lovely. I was going to ask you where it came from. So you answer it in the book, kind of.
Paul Say used to say to Spike a lot, the first rule of comedy, Spike, and he'd tell me one of them. But they're always different.
Yeah, lovely. Well, it's been great to chat with you, Jeffrey Holland. Thank you so much for joining us. There's some beautiful photos in the book as well, isn't there, with you and different people you've worked with?
Yeah, they're lovely pictures.
Nice. Yes. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Lovely to have you with us on Talk Radio Europe.
Thank you, Hannah, and Heidi hi to everyone.
Heidi hi.